Hello folks and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a kind of second impression look at the big box campaign game Frosthaven. In a recent video I talked about the things I was trying to get done for 2026 and one of those was getting Frosthaven back to the table after its 3-year hiatus. This video is going to be a kind of overview of my thoughts on the Haven games in general. We'll talk about how we got into the Haven series with the Jaws of the Lion expansion and the main original game, as well as my first impressions of Frosthaven back in 2023, our second impressions from our recent weekend play, and a few other things about the game in general. So I guess we should go back to the start. Since the early days of me being in the hobby, I'd always wanted to try Gloomhaven. It was a big box campaign fantasy game with interesting characters and really cool artwork. But it's expensive and it was a system I didn't know, so I struggled to take the jump. Thankfully, Cephalofair Games came out with Jaws of the Lion in 2020, which is a kind of training wheels version of Gloomhaven that really helps new players get to grips with the mechanics and the systems. We started playing that game in October 2020 and we finished our complete playthrough in March 2021, so about 6 months. We had 21 plays overall. There was a couple, I think there was maybe like 4 or 5 replays in that. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it was just a really fun co-op experience that me and my wife had in those 6 months, and it does a great job of holding your hand and introducing elements for the first 5 scenarios. It just introduces a few elements each scenario to get you used to it, and then just lets you loose. I played as Hatchet. I loved his axe mechanic, throwing that thing across the map, and then you had the tough decisions of where you were throwing it because you'd have to go and retrieve it again before you could use it a second and third time. So I was always careful about make sure I can get to it after I've let go, because I don't want to lose it for the rest of the scenario. And my wife, who likes to go with big and smashy characters, she went with the Demolitionist. She had a lot of fun with what they do. Yeah, we never got to try the other two, but they do look really cool as well. But yeah, absolutely fun co-op experience, and it taught us everything we needed to know. So I was just ready to take the plunge into the big box Gloomhaven after that. So how long did we wait before we got stuck into Gloomhaven? Well, it was about 4 weeks. we really couldn't wait to take the leap into the big box. We started playing the campaign in April 2021, and we finished 57 plays later in August 2022, so almost 18 months there. Anytime we could find a spare weekend, we would get that bad boy to the table. It's a big prospect to set everything up, so it wasn't a game that we wanted to just like do one scenario and then be done for the day. Whenever we played Gloomhaven, and this is true of Frosthaven going forward as well, it would be a case of a full weekend, a full weekend on the table. So I would get up early, maybe on Saturday morning, set everything up, because it's one of those games where you can have all the components on the table and it's all these little spaces. So we'd have all the terrain over there that my wife would deal with for setting things up. I'd have all the standees and the for the monsters on my side, and so you have the general stuff all in its places, and then it's just the middle of the table is where the action and the maps have to be set up for each scenario. So yeah, we would get up on a Saturday. I'd set up the game on our dining room table. It just squeezed in, and then we would just play as many scenarios as we could do on a Saturday. And then once we were tired and done for the day, we would just leave it all there, and then get up on the Sunday, do the same again, and then pack it away on the Sunday evening to clear the table away. So it was always Gloomhaven weekends, and that's how we sort of powered through that campaign. I will say now that thinking back to that, I mean, it's 2022, so we're talking, it's sort of 3.5 years ago now. I couldn't tell you what the plot of Gloomhaven was. The story probably isn't its strong point, but that isn't what we liked it for. Me specifically, I just loved the dungeon crawling and the fighting of monsters. I loved the way that the cards work in Gloomhaven, where you pick 2 cards every round. That gives you your initiative, but it also makes you choose between the top and bottom actions, of each of your 2 cards. And then having those turns, especially when things don't go your way, when one of the enemies gets initiative quicker than you and changes your plans, and you have to pivot, maybe change which cards you use, or just fall back to the basic actions for now, giving up on your master plan. Gloomhaven introduced, well, sorry, I wouldn't say introduced because Jaws of the Lion came out afterwards. Jaws of the Lion was very basic in it. So you just picked a character at the beginning and you play through the entire story, and that was it. But Gloomhaven has that awesome retirement mechanic where you have a goal to sort of aim for while you're playing all these scenarios with the story, and then when you fulfill it, you get to retire your character and get a new one. And it's just it was always fun to get a new box and then discovering new secrets, new cards, new ways to play. It really did help keep the game fresh. I enjoyed Jaws of the Lion. There was enough. It was a shorter story span, so it was okay to play one character, and I never got bored of my Hatchet character. But I think with something with the length of Gloomhaven, you would tire quickly just leveling up the same character. So it was fantastic. I started with the Crag Heart, absolutely loved him. Was really sad to see him go, actually. I remember my first retirement was kind of like bittersweet, and I wondered if I would actually like the retirement mechanic, but I did going forward. And I switched onto the Scoundrel. She was... I didn't like her at first, if I'm honest. I think she's another one of the 6 starting characters. And I did struggle with her for about 5 scenarios, and I was thinking about giving her up and maybe going to one of the other ones. And then in a scenario we played, she just clicked with me. And yeah, those 2 were my favourite characters I played. I got 2 more. I think I got the Gloomstalker and the... I can't remember the name of it, the Sun one, basically. And they were both really, really good as well. Yeah, my wife started heavy punchy with the Brute, first of all. And then she went on to... she did a magic character, and then she did... Her favourite, I think, was the 2-box bear character. If you've played it, you know what that is. She had a lot of fun with that. I think that's the one she missed the most. That's the one she didn't want to retire. But yeah, it was just... So when I do my top 50 list, there's a bit of a tangent, but when I do my top 50 list of the year, it's always the games I've played in that year. So my top 50 for 2025 were the games we played in 2025. I do this mostly because games like legacy games or games we don't have in our collection anymore, I find it hard to justify them being on a list when they're not being played, because that's what my top 50 is. It's the games I've enjoyed playing for a year. If I had to do a complete top 50 of all time, like taking them out of their eras and putting them all into one list now, Gloomhaven would without a doubt be my number 1 game of all time. And a lot of the heavy lifting of that comes from the experience I had playing that cult with my wife. The game is amazing. I really, really like it. I like playing through all those scenarios, even if I couldn't tell you half the time why we were doing what we were doing. Just point me towards enemies and let me beat them up in special ways with my cards. But just the experience I had, having those weekends with my wife where we would just camp at the dining room table for 2 days and power through scenarios, fail some, redo them, show off our cool tricks that our cards could do that the other player couldn't. Bad moments, good moments. It was an absolutely amazing experience, and it makes that game my favourite board gaming experience of all time. So that was Gloomhaven, and that experience of it meant that Frosthaven had a lot to live up to. But before we get onto the Frosty main course, there's a small side order that kind of derailed things for a moment between Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, and that's the expansion Forgotten Circles. We came off the back of Gloomhaven really sort of sad that it ended. I actually remember it was quite a melancholy final scenario because we knew that once we were done with it, that was it. I know you can sort of just spread out and just hammer all the scenarios you haven't done or replay what you want to do. But I knew I just wanted to experience the story through, finish the characters and be done. But then obviously I found the expansion and thought, there's a way of having extra Gloomhaven. So we brought that and we played it twice. We played one scenario on a Saturday, one scenario on a Sunday, and called it quits. It just didn't click with us. And there's a slight sense of foreshadowing for what was done with Forgotten Circles that is probably what made us struggle to get Frosthaven back to the table again. So a couple of changes were made to the Forgotten Circles. One of those was the scenario book. In Gloomhaven, whenever we were setting things up, I would have the book with all the scenario details on it, with the map pages, and I could in effect see everything that was going to come for us for the entire scenario, the levels of the bad guys and where they were positioned. It gave me a bit of an advantage. I never played with that advantage. I always sort of walked into a room as if I knew nothing. And I know it kind of irked my wife a little bit that she never got to see things, but I had that behind the curtains peek. To fix this, Forgotten Circles did a thing with the scenario book where it became like a choose your own adventure. you'd have the map tile you started on, but anything you branched off into through doors were kept on other pages in the book. So when you get to a door, turn to section 98.1 to see what comes next. And so you'd then open that page and it would reveal the next step of the mission. It's great in theory, and I think it solves a problem that is there, in that someone always has to have something spoiled for them, but it immediately puts another layer of admin in, because you're like having to like go through these pages and books, and when you're trying to record information for scenarios you've done before, which again is foreshadowing for Frosthaven, it becomes a bit like a spaghetti junction, and it's hard to track things. I also didn't like in the Forgotten Circles that you are forced to play with a new class, the Diviner. I didn't like her. I took her on while my wife carried on the character she'd taken from Gloomhaven. I think she was the Mind Thief at that time. And I did not like her abilities. I did not like the special scenario rules for each of the scenarios we tried. It just made things super complicated. And yeah, I was actually willing to, after 2 scenarios, just call it quits and get rid of the Forgotten Circles expansion. I know it's very Marmite in the community. I think some people really like it, and some people like me just did not get on with it. And I will never touch that expansion again. But yeah, I didn't know then that some of the things that irked me in that expansion would come back in the Frosthaven game. So let's get on to that. I'll say right now that I didn't actually back the crowdfunding campaign for Frosthaven. We were in the early days of enjoying Gloomhaven, and I still wasn't sure if I was willing to pay as much money as it was to back that game. It was kind of a risk. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and if that campaign had launched the day we'd finished playing Gloomhaven, I wouldn't have hesitated to pay whatever they wanted. So unfortunately, I missed the campaign, but I did find an online store that did pre-orders. So to secure a copy, I just ordered it and then hoped for the best and waited. I was quite fortunate because I was following the campaign along through all the developer updates, and I'd seen that there was the normal delays you'd get with a crowdfunding game of that size, but also they did say that it's such a big project, it has so many backers that it was going to take months to fulfill. So I just relaxed and thought, okay, well, they'll fulfill to all the backers, and then after that, the retail will start and we'll eventually get our copy. What I didn't realise was the store I pre-ordered with backed the campaign. A lot of brick and mortar do that. They just back it as a retailer and get the copies that way. So my copy turned up at the same time as everyone else as well, which was a fantastic surprise. I got the email, assumed it was a scam at first because it didn't make any sense to me. And it's like, yeah, your box is coming in 2 days' time. So that was great. So before we get into the game itself, let's talk about what it's like to receive Frosthaven. That game comes with a lot of punch board. I think there's like more than 50 punch boards. It became a little mini project of, I had that game on the table for 3 days, punching the cardboard, sorting things into trays, sorting all the enemy cards and tokens into baggies. I'll put pictures up of all this. Just the table was covered as I got the game all prepared and put away back in the box. It's gargantuan. So we got the game to the table, like I said, nearly 3 years ago now. And we did the usual thing. We got it all set up on the Saturday morning with the intention of playing it through the Saturday and into the Sunday before packing it away. Beforehand, thanks to Paul Grogan's Game of Rules video, he's done a fantastic how to play. He did like a 90-minute, yes, 90-minute how to play video for Gloomhaven, and an extra 20-ish minute video on the outpost phase, which I'll come back to the outpost phase shortly. But yeah, so we got stuck into it. We picked our characters once again. My wife went heavy hitter and she went with the drifter, and I picked the banner spear because I liked the mini. I liked she had the eagle on her arm, sorry, and they were both the low complexity ones. Some of them sounded really interesting, but I think there was the Bone Shaper just seemed a bit. I was a bit nervous about the fact that you're losing health when you summon things, and then the Germinate, which just sounds amazing in concept. I don't think I could handle playing as the 2 characters and switching my hand of cards each time. So we just thought we'll start off with the basics, with the low complexities. Yeah, and we got stuck into it. We did do the scenario 0 because I'm of the thinking that I want to enjoy as much content as I can, and start the story where the game. It says if you've experienced Gloomhaven before, you don't need to do it, but I just wanted to hit the ground running and try everything. So we did the sort of training mission, I guess it is, with the wolves, and then after that we progressed to reaching Frosthaven, and we did a little bit of stuff there, and then headed out to some other scenarios, did a fight. It has this really cool thing like Gloomhaven had, where sometimes you have to make a choice, and one pathway, one route of missions might be carved to you, and that happened to us quite early on as well. And yeah, it was pretty much par for the course. The battle maps were there. It did bring over the Forgotten Circles usage of the scenario book, so we only had the revealed tiles as we were working through the scenarios. It was okay. I didn't mind it. The characters themselves were a mixed bag. I liked some of the stuff my character did, the Bannerspear, but although they're classed as low complexity for Frosthaven, I just found them immediately fiddly to play with compared to what I was used to. But when you look at the Cragheart or the Scoundrel, there's so much fun. There's so much that pops in their deck. But the Bannerspear's thing of having to have someone next to you to do really cool moves. When we play 2-player Gloomhaven, we don't always stick together because then we're kind of like bringing everything to around us. Our characters are getting surrounded quickly on the map, even if we're paired up. We tend to separate a little bit if we can. So I wasn't always able to use my wife as my assistant player, so I was leaving that all to my summons, and they're not brilliant, if I'm honest. The banners themselves are useful. They can come in clutch, but they also don't move. So once you put it down, you kind of want to save them for when you get to the boss or something. There's a healing one that you just want to put down near the bad guy and then just like stand with your back to it and just heal a little bit every time you're taking hits. I'm not going to put that down at the beginning of the move just to pull off a cool punch. I had my the redhead with the torch. She was pretty useful, but you don't control her. So sometimes I found it difficult to plan to get her into position because she goes first on my turn. So she would then just run somewhere, and then I've lost that ability to pull off one of my cool moves when I've got my teammate next to me, my ally next to me. And then I've got the other guy who I can control, and he looks like Fantasy Gambit. I did like him, but he is useless. I think he's got like did he have 1 hit point? I think he was really weak and he doesn't hit. So the only good thing about him was you didn't lose that card when you summoned him. So if you did get knocked out, he'd just go into your discard pile and hopefully you can get it back again. But yeah, I just ended up finding it really fiddly. I think in a 4-player game, really good because 2 of you could just stick together to really maximise the Bannerspear's abilities, leaving the other 2 to go off and separate to do other things. But in a 2-player game, it just wasn't working for me. But yeah, we muddled through. I enjoyed the standard stuff that I like from Gloomhaven. I like the card combat, the decision of which cards you're going to fight with. Most of the monsters we fought at the beginning in those first few days, other than I think it was one species that was different, but a lot of the other ones were the same kind of thing. And then we finished that and we got to the outpost phase. Now, and this is where I started having my first few problems with the game. In the original Gloomhaven, when you went back to the city, you just had that as a kind of hub where you could level up your character if you hit the XP for it. You could retire your character if you'd finished your quest, and you could buy things from the market. And that was it. So you got coin from down bad guys in the scenario, you save that up, and then you go back to Gloomhaven, and you just get like scenario rewards, maybe like every player gets like 10 gold. And then you would spend that gold to buy things, to give yourself items and unlocks like that. And that worked very well. It was just simple. Fight things, pick up money, spend money, done. Frosthaven wanted to make things a little bit more complicated. And I get it. Players, there's 2 kinds of players, I think, that were going into Frosthaven. There's people like me that just wanted more of the same. So I wanted Gloomhaven, but with maybe just a new setting, new plot, new characters, done. And I would have been super happy for that. But other people wanted more. So they added some complexities. And it mostly all stems from the outpost phase. So in Gloomhaven, you would go out to the city, do all those basic things, and then you'd have a city card that would just give you that binary choice of you meet someone in an alley, do you do A or B? A lot like the road cards you do before you headed out. In this outpost phase, you did have that. You had an outpost card which did the same thing, but some of those outpost cards lead to the outpost being attacked. And then this is its own little mini combat game, but there's no miniatures or anything like that. It is just decks of cards that you flip over, like your own sort of your own deck of cards that you modify for attacks with +1, +2. But this has like +10, +20, and it feels really stale and really convoluted. So there was that. And then there's the stuff you can do. It's the same as Gloomhaven. So you can level up, you can retire, you can buy things technically, although we can't yet because that is a building you have to build, as far as I can see, and we haven't got there yet. We've got a shop that we can craft stuff at, and this is where the loot system gets a little bit out of hand, because in the scenarios in Gloomhaven, you would have enemy goes down, put a coin where they went down. If you can get to it, pick it up, great. But now there's a loot deck. Now this deck isn't just a normal deck, which I would have been fine with if it was just a deck of a few things and you just brought that to every scenario, shuffled up, and then you just got what there. But no, the loot decks are preset, so you have to build them from the cards you've got, which is fiddly and annoying. And there's such a mix of things in that loot deck, because you've got your coin, yay, but then you've got wood, iron, and hide. Fine. I think I would have been okay with those materials because you're using those to do the buildings and stuff in Gloomhaven, and I would have just left it at that. Money to buy things, materials to build things. But then they add in plants as well, and these plants are used for making potions, which is a completely different thing. So you kill something, say you're after, like you need like 2 more wood when you get back to Frosthaven to be able to build this building you really need, and you kill like 10 bad guys in a scenario and they just drop like hide, metal, and 3 different like plants that you don't really need or aren't chasing at the moment, and it just added too much variability into that loot picking up, and that became frustrating, because also there might be triggers in the story. There's certain events that kick off after a certain amount of days, and one of those might be worse for you if you haven't prepared by building the walls up for defense, or you haven't got a certain building in play and you couldn't get that building because you never got wood out of that loot deck. 5 scenarios in maybe, you never got wood, you wouldn't be able to build things. So I did not like the loot deck. I did not like the extended treacle-like outpost phase. So yeah, you're doing the outpost card, you're leveling up if you want to, then you can craft things, then you can do potions, then you can build buildings or upgrade buildings. It's like a 7-step process of getting stickers and everything out if you do things, and yeah, it became too much. I like to play the scenarios, and then a little bit of story and a little bit of popping back to the city was the kind of like breather between things. But now it's like 2 different games. I'm doing miniatures and fighting, and I'm doing a city building game that's like hard on resources. So I started to find myself quite stressed, because also what I find difficult personally in these legacy games is, and I love any kind of legacy or campaign game that is non-destructive, non-marked, because there's a permanence to putting stickers on a board, and I just always stress out if I get something wrong. Not because how it will look, if a sticker's in the wrong place slightly, that's fine, but I don't want it to cause problems down the line, especially in a game like this where we didn't come back for such a long time. I don't know if what I've done is correct in a way that it might hinder us or make things too easy later on down the line. If I've misread something, if I've unlocked something too early because I missed a sticker that should have been somewhere, it's just too much. To compare the scale of these 2 phases as well, you can look at the party sheets that you get. So in Gloomhaven, the party sheet was about A5 size. It was the same as your character sheets. It had enough information on there just for you to track things like the morale of the city, your rating with the city, like the prosperity level, that's it, and things like that, and then your characters and when they retire, and that's all you really needed. But this one is A4, so that already tells you that it's been ramped up quite a bit, and you're tracking so many things. And the amount of times I read tick off or go up 1 level of prosperity or morale, whatever, and I had to really think about which one that was, because there's like 3 or 4 different tracks you can adjust stuff to. it just became so much admin, and I would just get stressed by it all. Like I say, whether I was doing it right or wrong, making sure we hadn't missed anything, and I was in charge of all that. I tend to be with some of the bigger games, like because I learn the games, I teach the games, and yeah, and I just remember at the end of that Saturday, I was just getting really freaked out, and this is partly a me thing. I know, other people can handle this stuff, but it was just it for me. It wasn't the fun getting stuck into the fighting and the tactics of the scenarios that I really enjoyed from the original game. So yeah, this all led to I think we had a bit of a sour experience. We weren't sure exactly if we'd enjoyed it or not. Like I say, the basics were there, but the extra stuff just felt like too much work for us. And it's one of those things then that, weeks passed, months passed, and we stopped making the effort to find that weekend. And then you get to a point where that sort of mental barrier goes up of, it's been a year and I can't remember the plot and I can't remember what my character does and things like that. And I think that just is what will cause the game to sit on our shelves and gather dust, unfortunately. It just, you put it off for so long and then it just becomes easy to forget about it. So yeah, but then come to 2026, and I think I mentioned in the video that I posted a few weeks ago, one of the reasons I wanted to get Gloomhaven back to the table wasn't just to carry on and give it another chance, because we do love Gloomhaven, and Frosthaven is like 80% of that. But also, the size of the box, because we've got the little binder that comes with it that holds the map tiles, so those two things together, they take up an entire Kallax unit. Now, Frosthaven is going to be the same as Gloomhaven for me. When it's done, it's gone. I'm happy to play through it as a one-time only game. I looked at Gloomhaven, it's like 57 plays we had of that. It's an expensive game, you're talking like £100 plus. But the amount of times we played it came down to like £1 or something, or £1.50 for a play, which is just, it's cheaper than a cup of coffee, as they said. So I'm happy to play through this. And this is more scenarios than this one. We're going to be playing this longer. I know that. And I got it for a pretty good price, actually, compared to what I see it is now on retail. So yeah, that's why I wanted to get back to the table. And I just wanted to make an effort this year to be the next game we do, because it's going to be, it's not like learning a new game and then if you like it, it's still on the shelf, so it's still taking up the space. I know Frosthaven will get done and will be out the door, freeing up an entire Kallax, which is like 4 or 5 games I can fit on there. I'm not going to rush it. I don't want to just... we did this with Pandemic Legacy. I played through it because I just wanted to get it finished. I wanted to play everything and not just throw it away incomplete. But we just powered through that to get it done. Yeah, Frosthaven, I want to enjoy it, and I'm just going to... well, I guess we should talk about my second impressions then. There was, however, a small hurdle I had to climb over before I could get Frosthaven back to the table, and that was working out where the hell we'd got to. It had been 3 years, I had no idea what the plot was, and I wanted to put together a kind of summary both for myself and for my wife, almost like a previously on Frosthaven. Thankfully, there's a new addition to the sequel that the other game didn't have, and that is these awesome advent calendar style scenario trackers. These were a lifesaver when trying to recover the plot. I used a digital version for Gloomhaven, but I only sort of discovered it right near the end of us playing that through. And that was very much a click on the scenario, there's a few tick boxes, and it would then block off the paths you couldn't go to, and it would open up any scenarios you'd unlocked since. This does the same thing in just cardboard form. So yeah, I was able to start from the beginning, scenario 0, and summarize quickly all the gumph, all the blurb that is used to set up the scenarios, and I would go to the end of the scenario and do the same thing. This was made slightly more difficult by that Choose Your Own Adventure scenario book. There was a lot of going through pages and trying to work out what we'd done. I used some notes on my BG Stat app when I play these games, so luckily there was a few details there that I was able to pick off the choices we've made at certain crossroads to know which way to go through. But yeah, I barely remembered any of what we'd done with the factions and stuff. Something that really saved us on this second playthrough as well, I think, was we got to a point where we'd unlocked a side quest. And if you've gotten this far, I'm not going to spoil like loads of major stuff. We were only 9 scenarios into the game, it's still early days, so there's not much for me to go into that's going to spoil things. I'm guessing most of the people that watch this video have already played Frosthaven, so you've already passed this point. so this isn't new information. But we unlocked the Lurker side quest, and I think that was really beneficial to us because we got back into the game, starting a new quest. That first scenario as well was, I wouldn't say it was a soft scenario, but it was enough that we were able to make a few mistakes and not get punished for it. So yeah, it was fun getting back into the gameplay that I enjoy. Trying to relearn my banner spear, remembering again why I was a bit peeved by a lack of performance in my hands. But yeah, that scenario worked out quite well. We did a decent amount of damage and we got the scenario completed. We then moved on to the next one, and it was a complete opposite. It's a scenario that I really got to suddenly see the issues I'm having with my character in the lack of movement she has. She has 2 move 4 cards, they're great. But if they get discarded, or if they're already have already been used, especially in the early game, I don't want to rest too early, so if I've used them quickly, it's going to be a while before they come back into my hand again. I think she has a hand limit of 10, the banner spear. But I was finding myself stuck quite a bit, moving across the map, because we had to get to a certain point on the other side of the map. I think this was one of those ones that doesn't expand outwards. It's just, as it's set up, is as it is. And my wife got across to the objective, and I was struggling to keep up. And then by that point, I was surrounded by enemies. Now, I will say, unintentionally, I might have saved the day with my being a snail, because what ended up happening was, as I was making my through the map, I started to get surrounded by enemies, and then I, by default, became the closest target to them. So all the enemies around us and the ones that are spawning on those spaces just focused on me, and it just let my my wife, like a good old unprotected running back, just make up the other end of the field, and she hardly had anything to deal with. And I held on as long as I could. I kept seeing ways out of it, but then initiative would get me cut off from my route out, and I'd get stuck behind ice pillars and blah, blah, blah. But the banner spear went down that game. But like I say, I think it actually worked out for the best, because I was able to just do a hodl moment and just hold everything back and protect my wife so she could fulfill the mission. But yeah, the banner spear she just isn't, she just struggles to move. But it did highlight one thing I don't like about Gloomhaven scenarios. I don't remember how many there were in the original game. I do remember the ones we experienced on this second weekend. And that is the scenarios where enemies spawn every 5 seconds, every round. I like a sense of progression to my combat. I like to walk into a room, see that there's this many. I don't care if I'm outnumbered when I walk into a room, but I like to take everything down and then job done, on to the next. And I also don't mind it if the scenario has like a countdown. If you don't get done by this time, the main bad guy's going to turn up, or like 3 of his lieutenants are going to like teleport into the room, and suddenly, if you've not done your job quick enough, you've got this extra level of aggression to the combat. I don't mind that. What I don't like is every round you get a little thing. At the start of the round, 2 enemies here, 2 enemies there. At the end of the second round, 2 enemies here, 2 enemies there. At the beginning of the third round, and it's just like, you're just fighting back a flood, and I find it hard. This isn't. Some people might like this. I'm not saying this is a terrible mechanic that should be ripped out of the game. I'm saying this is what affects my enjoyment of Frosthaven. And then on top of that, it seems like they've done again what Forgotten Circle's done, or did, and that is every scenario has to have its own special rules gimmick. And with characters that I'm struggling to work tactically well, and I've got to then keep the admin of what the scenario requires of me to do, with all the maintenance and the special rules. And once this happens, and this time we're doing this instead of that, and it's just, I just want to walk into a dungeon with my guy or my gal and smash things in their face. And I did that a lot in Gloomhaven. I did that a lot in Jaws of the Lion. I'm not doing that here. So yeah, maybe part of it's the banner spear and me not gelling well together, but I do think that those 2 complexities on top of everything else, when you're struggling with the basics, these extra fiddly bits just make things more of a slog. So yeah, it has allowed me to kind of I've been a little bit more fed up to the point that I'm relaxing more. So where I was a bit more stressed about the mistakes we were making, especially with the legacy aspects and the rules on our first impressions, this time, and I think I saw it in the Sharp and Sit Down video that Matt Lees did. It's a co-op game. You're not being viewed by millions. I'm not being watched by the police. If I make a mistake, it's just a game. As long as me and my wife have had fun at the end of the scenario in some way, then it doesn't matter that if I forgot to do one of those scenario rules for like round 3 and we should have more bad guys on the table than we thought we did. And we did make mistakes, and we did kind of just fudge them over because I want to enjoy playing through the game and I don't want to just be hitting my head against a wall every scenario. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. I enjoyed the second experience because we got to relearn it and we're back on the train, as it were. And I do want to get through Frosthaven. I'm hoping that based on so we had something unlocked in the game that in the 3 years since I've had this game, so it's the 3 years since we last played it, I've not had spoiled for me. So when it happened, I was like, this is awesome, and it's got me excited to take that unlock and run with it because it opens up some extra things for us. So I'm hoping that more stuff in the game unlocks that kind of helps cheer me up, maybe is a way of putting it. Because what Frosthaven does, I think, which is really, really good for legacy games, is it doesn't just give you loads of things in the first 25% of the game and then stops with the unlocks. I think it's a game that just keeps that progression unlock going. Not just the character unlocks, but there's loads of envelopes to do and loads of extra little things like this thing we unlocked. So I'm hoping that there'll be more to do that will keep me smiling and keep giving me these fun surprises, because if I was stuck with the Banner Spear for the next 60, 70 plus scenarios, I think this would be a negative impression of the Haven series for me. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. Like I say, I enjoy playing the co-op with my wife. That's still there. I enjoy the battle system in its basic form. And I am enjoying, like I say, the unlocks. We've got 3 characters unlocked so far. My wife has already taken one. That's when she retires, she's having that one. I think it's the same race as some characters she played in the last game. So I've been left with 2 others. One looks very interesting, so I can't wait to get to that. But I'm not going to rush my quest too much. Although I'm not spending any gold unless absolutely necessary, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think I'll be happy to see the back of the Banner Spear. I know I can retire early and just pick another character, but again, that's a me thing. I just don't do that. I play a character, I stick with the character for that part of the story, and then I'll get to the next one. But yeah, so second impression was different. Glad we're back on board with it, and we're definitely going to play it again soon. And we're going to keep the momentum going to get through the game. But I don't think this will be knocking Gloomhaven off my #1 spot anytime soon. So before we go, I just want to talk about the folded space insert for Frosthaven. I had the insert, and it's a gorgeous insert. It's the most expensive one. It's got the most pieces to any game that I've put an insert together for from them. But I didn't put it together when Frosthaven first turned up because the insert that the game came with looked pretty useful. Especially the token trays, the ones that hold the map overlay tiles and the condition effects and the wounds and such, it was pretty perfect. So it made me hesitant to put together the folded space insert if I wasn't going to use it. Now I will say that the next layer down in that box, the card insert, is not so great. You have a section which is just a long row with all the small cards in there, so the monster attack modifiers, the item cards and such. What I didn't like about that was that the way they've done the dividers, there's different cards on each side of the dividers, and then there's like little dividers in the gully that separate the decks out as well. But the issue with that is when you're sort of flicking through cards and you've got the headers to see which ones you want to get, so you want to get the ally attack modifier cards out, you're only seeing what's in front of that divider, but on the back of that divider is another set of cards. But obviously the writing on that one is facing away from you, so you almost have to memorize where they are, because otherwise you're going to be searching through one way and having to turn it around and then go back the other way. I didn't understand that. So anyway, I thought about getting this folded space insert and giving it a go when we did our return to the table. Unfortunately, I didn't plan ahead too well and didn't get it ready for our playthrough. I was actually punching it and building it. I did a dry build of it on a Saturday morning before I came out here to set up the game, so that wasn't ready. And then I was gluing it Sunday and Monday morning, and then Tuesday and Wednesday mornings I just found a little bit of time to start putting everything into the trays. Now, the issue with the card storage, it's definitely solved with folder space. The sections just hold the cards a little bit better, and it comes with extra dividers as well. They are repeats, but it just gave me, I can have one way with one thing on it and one the other way, and just use it so I'm always facing the right way. It also holds all the big cards a lot easier, the outpost cards. I didn't really think that worked in the original Frosthaven tray either. I had trouble letting go of the token inserts and the map overlay inserts, and my brain wanted to kind of amalgamate the inserts and have the best of both worlds. And I did try to store things in the box with all of the folded space parts that I wanted problems fixed by, and then keeping the sections of the original insert that I was happy with. But the guys at Folded Space, they do a fantastic job of their insert designs, but they are like a perfect puzzle. And if you just take one or two trays out of that block that is leaves no space for anything else, it kind of throws things off. And then so I had wobbles and things weren't sitting properly. So I just had to commit and go for the whole thing. And it looks good. Unfortunately, I didn't finish building it in time to test it in a game to see how it assists us with having everything on the table and playing across the weekend. That will come with the next one. But it's gorgeous. It's one of the color range of folded space inserts. So it's got a lot of the frosty blue artwork across a lot of the outsides of them. Some of them got this faux wooden image on the side of it, so it looks like crates holding things. And then it does what they do best, which is they put the images of what a tray is supposed to contain on the face up, so you can see the 10 wound tokens go here, the stun tokens go here, that kind of thing. I just think that's amazing. So you don't have to keep referring to these sheets and trying to work out what goes in what tray. You can just see immediately. So yeah, we got the whole thing in there. The other thing I really like about the folded space insert is the player trays. One thing I just used to put up with was we separate our cards out for the characters, the sort of main attack cards and then any of your items and modify cards, because you unlock things. So I would keep a baggie with what I could play with and a baggie which was locked. But those character boxes, these things can get they can bulge quite a bit because you're trying to get a lot of stuff packed back into them. But the folded space insert comes with little character trays that just hold a player's cards, tokens, and other things and that, and it's just, I think it's going to be fantastic for getting things out. So we've got our two sort of live characters in those trays. I just hand that to my wife when we start playing a game, and she'll have everything she needs, but having to get things out of baggies and keep things separate and worry about things like that. Yeah, so that is really, really good. And we've also got, I think I mentioned, we've got the sort of the binder that holds the map tiles. I've been using that from the beginning. I used that on our first weekend 3 years ago, and I used it for this weekend. And that is that was such a bugbear with Gloomhaven, was trying to find tiles. I mean, halfway through the campaign, you start to remember, you can see that's a hex one, and you can kind of grab the hex ones out first and then file through those. But having them in numbered order is a lot easier to store them. It gives you some more space in the box as well. So yeah, I've loved that little file system since the beginning. But yeah, I will definitely come back with thoughts on the folded space insert. But everything in the box, it fits beautifully. It looks good, and based on the experience of all the other folded space inserts I've used, they are very helpful with storing a game and with getting games to the table quicker. So yeah. And that's the end of the video, I guess. It's been a mixed bag. My second impressions are still, some of the things that irked me originally are hanging over the game. I think I've changed enough that I'm more about looking forward to what else the game is going to offer as we go forward, and hoping things iron themselves out. I'm full of hope. I will say one extra thing is that the benefit of playing the game 3 years later is that the mistakes that came with that first printing, and from what I've read, there were a lot. Both just grammatical errors in the text, but also things leading to different to wrong pages in the outcomes. Monster cards having the wrong modifiers on them, so making them harder or easier. So 3 years later, I've got a lovely little errata sheet that I'm keeping track of to hopefully alleviate any of the issues that might come from tripping into those mistakes. Because I think back then that would have also been another barrier of things suddenly getting confusing, not making sense, because it was telling us to go to one page and that wasn't, continuing the bit we were on, having to track down on BGG to find out what was going on, and having monsters that were hitting us harder than was originally intended would have been a real morale killer. So yeah, that's fantastic. Having that makes me kind of happy that we waited 3 years and we're going again. I would also say that it's been so long. So I was looking through some photographs while I was prepping my notes to get this video put together, and I discovered that apparently I have metal coins for Gloomhaven somewhere because we were using them in the first weekend we played, and this weekend I didn't realise, so we were just playing with the cardboard tokens. So I'm going to try and track those down before we have our next play again, because I love metal coins. Who doesn't? But yeah, they're my impressions. I know I've already said that, but yeah, I'm still a Haven fan. I don't think Frosthaven's it's gonna have to work hard to elevate itself above Gloomhaven. I'm excited to see what else comes out of it. I'm hoping it's not more of the same. And yeah, it's I still think it's going to be a fun experience to work through the box and the campaign and get to the end. I'm looking forward to finishing it for the right reasons. So yeah, all I can say now is I can see how long this video is going to be. So for anyone that's watched 1 minute, 10 minutes, or the entire thing, I always appreciate people checking out the videos, following along. Make sure if you enjoyed it to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. It really helps us out with visibility here on YouTube. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts on Frosthaven were, whether you agree with me or if you think I'm crazy. And I will see you in the next video.